And welcome to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. I'm your host, Pastor David. Folks, we got a conversation that we need to have. Chicago has gone bankrupt. The schools are being closed and they won't open up in September because the budget is over $1 billion in debt. We got grocery stores leaving the Black community. And it's just like what Brandon Johnson said. He came to destroy the city of Chicago. So if you ain't got nothing to do, call your friends and let them know. You're listening to Let the Truth Be Told Radio. I'm your host, Pastor David. Y'all come on in. And welcome to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. I'm your host, Pastor David. And first, let me give all praises to Yahuwah and Yahusha. That's God in Christ in Hebrew. To the American people and patriots across this country, Chicago has become the shithole that it is. Mayor Brandon Johnson, when he got elected to office, his whole mission was a lie. He lied to the people of Chicago about how he was going to make the changes and how he was going to take Chicago to a whole nother level. But that wasn't his mission. That was the lie that he told in order to trick the people of Chicago to make them think that he was going to make a difference. And he did make a difference. He totally destroyed the city of Chicago. His continuation to fund the migrants and take taxpayer dollars. He never did anything for any of the communities in Chicago. He allowed the teen takeovers. Crime is going out the roof. And he continues to lie to the people of Chicago as if it's not his fault, but that was his mission, and that's what he's doing. So now here we are. It's a school year about to come up here in September. And the schools are broke. They're talking about not opening the schools because there is no money. And Brandon Johnson is still feeding the people of Chicago and the state of Illinois the same old line that the city is doing good, crime is down. He's not talking about all the stores like Save-A-Lot, Walgreens, and you name it, are leaving the city of Chicago. McDonald's, the Bears leaving the city of Chicago, but this was part of the plan. And Donald Trump said it would be this way, but yet and still, the people of Chicago are suffering. And now Brandon Johnson is losing administrators to his office. So we're going to talk about that. So let me get my group in. What's up, Mr. B?
Howdy.
What's going on, Kirsten?
Hi.
What's up, Dre?
I'm doing all right.
Guys, the city of Chicago has taken a huge hit. Brandon Johnson never, ever had any intentions on fixing Chicago. It was all a plan for him to get into office and continue on what Barack Obama and Lori Lightfoot did, was to get illegals in the city of Chicago, use taxpayers' money, and take all sorts of kickbacks. See, Brandon don't care, and he don't care if he run and win the mayorship or not. He fulfilled his duty to destroy this country and bring it to its knees because the Democratic Party told him that's what you need to do. We need to make Chicago, like California, a shithole so that the feds can step in and we can beg for more money. And then those who are living in the city of Chicago, the ones who helped Brandon Johnson get into office, are buying up property in the city. They're using fictitious programs to siphon money. The nonprofits are also in this problem. Dre, your thoughts on Chicago?
Well, they spent a lot of money on illegal immigration. And as a result of that, their budget has gone into the red. And because it has gone into the red, they're taxing Chicago citizens more money. So this is a problem that Chicago brought on itself. And there's nothing that the taxpayers can do to alleviate the problem because there's no pushback on how the money is spent. The comptroller is not pushing back against Brandon Johnson. She's just a lapdog for everything that he does and gives him a high five every time he spends more money and gives kickbacks to the rest of Chicago. So the schools are suffering, all these different Chicago citizens are suffering, and it's not getting better.
Mr. Binky?
Yeah, well, as Andre said, it's the people of the city's problem for electing him. You know, he was a teacher, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
head of the union, something like that. So he's got interest on the education part of it, and part of getting education is what money you can get in from grants and stuff like that. Well, that's money laundering to me, is that you get money in there for a purpose and you use it in some other way, self-enrichment for other programs, illegal programs, because having illegals in that city is violating federal laws. And as you said, Andre, is the people are being taxed. The whole state's being taxed to compensate for that. So it's everybody in the state. So what you got is you got a government that's running as a democracy. They do what they want without having rules. You know, it's the majority. And being is that if the majority rules, that's mob action. Mob action is a democracy. That's what this country was not founded on. So it's just the building blocks here, but it all leads to the foundation of the people putting in the garbage to begin with.
Kirsten?
So as I'm not really up on the Chicago thing, the issue is that I don't feel like enough Americans properly vet people who are running for office, right? Mm-hmm. It's just like Obama gave the greatest, speech to drag in every Republican and Democrat to vote for him. And without doing your proper research, just because you don't like who Donald Trump endorsed, or you don't like this person because of the color of their skin or their gender. I mean, people have to realize what they're signing up for. I mean, looking at New York, look at Mondami and what he's doing. People didn't care to take the time, A, to get out and vote, and 2, to vet these people properly. And the issue is it's not just Chicago, it's Michigan, it's everywhere, that we are being taken over by illegals. And our tax-paying dollars are going to illegals before Americans.
Well, we're being taken over by foreigners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's part of the vetting process Kirsten was just talking about. When we flood this country with people from other countries, they're bringing over their traditions and the way they want to live. And now they're being elected up into public offices and stuff like that. And now they're practicing what they left, claiming they were leaving it because they didn't like it. So now they're bringing it over here, and they're wanting communities, the small communities, and those are the ones you got to protect, is the small ones.
Well, guys, that's the whole thing about illegal immigration, and it has been going out through the history of this country that people come over here and they are not assimilating to the American way of life. And that has been a big problem for me, because the Black community who are born and bred here in America, we was forced to assimilate to the government and what they wanted us to be. Black people were never allowed to be themselves, because I can remember back in the day, Black people was getting their hair straightened out, put the conch in so it could look like white. The whole system toward the Black community was Black people have to assimilate to what white society has brought to this country. And that has been a downfall in our community. Instead of us being our own self, building our own wealth, investing into our own communities, just like everybody else is doing now, the Black community was not allowed to do that. They was forced into this thing by discrimination to accept the new life that the American citizen is supposed to be. And yet now we see we got illegals over here, Little Italy, Chinatown. They're not abandoning their way of life. They took, just like what you said, Mr. Binky, they took the lives that they had over in a country that they hated, brought it to America, and now they're existing. But I want to get back to the point of Brandon Johnson. Brandon Johnson has been nothing but a pawn for Barack Obama and the Democratic Party. To the people of Chicago, his whole mission was never to enrich Chicago, but to take from it. The staff that he chose was handpicked people that would go along with him so that he could get everything passed for illegals, do everything against the city of Chicago. And now, all of a sudden, no more federal money is coming in. Taxpayers now is having to foot the bill of the illegals, and his people that he picked is selling him out and resigning. Let's play this clip, guys, and we can talk about it.
The city remains on solid financial footing.
Annette Guzman was there on day one of the Johnson administration. Now she's one of many high-profile exits. The city's CFO, Jill Jaworski, left in January. Her acting replacement, Stephen Marr, resigned last week, along with his deputy, Noor Sheikh. The city's public health commissioner, Ige, left in May. Larry Snelling retired last month, the top CPD. And Garion Gatewood, the deputy mayor of community safety, left in March.
Transitions happen all the time in administrations, but what's most constant is my presence.
For residents concerned about stability at the top,
They have stability. They have stability in me. Again, one person does not run the operation around here. It's a collection.
there's also a collection of concern for a city facing a likely billion-dollar budget cap, budget season weeks away, and hasty budget boss departures.
I have never seen this kind of exodus in City Hall.
Alderman Scott Waguespack helped craft last year's budget among a council caucus that knocked down the mayor's proposal.
I caught a snippet of what you were asking and others today, and I did not hear a plan for how to move forward, and that should have been first and foremost.
How are you bracing for it differently than you did last year when you had continuity?
We do have continuity. I'm the continuity, right? Again, it's not just one person in one particular position.
Who are the people that are manning these critical posts, most particularly in the financial realm at this moment?
Joe Ferguson leads the independent Civic Federation that analyzes public finance.
What we're seeing is they're dropping like flies for reasons that nobody really understands going into what already are choppy waters before we even get into the open sea of budget season.
Those looking to unseat Mayor Johnson next year have labeled his administration a revolving door. He says change happens all the time, and these departures are manageable.
And I fully anticipate and expect that we'll have someone who will carry out my vision for the city of Chicago.
Okay, Dre, your thoughts, because he just said something. He said he envisioned somebody who would take his place and carry out what his administration started. All right, Dre, hit him up.
Well, he is the continuity. So, he's the only one that hasn't made an exit. I think the budget director, Guzman, she had a lot of sense because she resigned. And if she hadn't resigned, there would have been calls for her to do so. There is no budget. There is no plan. And he is the emperor with no clothes. People are calling him out, and he's ignoring him. So,
Mr. Binky.
Yeah, I call it condemnuity. People, look at this. Listen to this guy. He is one that was uneducating your children in Chicago. He's talking about a collection. He said collection. A collection of what? Manure? Because that's all he's talking about is garbage. People wake up to these. What you're putting into office, you're not putting any principled people in there. You're putting people in office with an agenda, and that agenda is anti-American.
Kirsten?
Again, I think people should do better vetting, but I mean, I think also people are kind of having a wake-up call to the fraud that's happening, the fraud that is soon to be prosecuted and exposed for what it is. So I'm sure there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes that these people are leaving before they're held accountable and tied to his corruption behind the scenes.
Well, guys, you know what?
I hope you're right, Kirsten. I hope you're right, because I want to see people prosecuted, but I'm not going to see it. I don't believe. I want to be totally wrong here, Kirsten. I want people to get prosecuted, but I don't think it's going to happen.
There's
Mr.
Binky, you might be wrong. You might be wrong because the vice president was on with Stephen Miller and a few other people, and they have a whole fraud unit. Maybe that's why we're seeing the mass exodus, because we haven't seen like a mass exodus like this before. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pastor Laurie. I think the writing is on the wall, and these people are starting to see that the federal government is starting to sniff around in their state affairs. Go ahead.
I hope so. I want to be wrong, but Hunter Biden, Hillary Clinton, Eric Holder, for decades after decade after decade.
Right.
We've got so much corruption. Our court systems, these judges, these attorneys, state's attorneys, all this stuff that are taking their own laws and manipulating them and twisting them around to get false arrests, false accusations. I mean, it's got to stop. Kirsten's right. I'm hoping that people are waking up to this.
Right. And I think the only thing that's different in all of those cases, Steve, is we have a former president. We have a current president who has been arrested by what we call political lawfare. So there is a motivation for him to really clean up this swamp. And he wants to, get his get back at some of these people that tried to put him in jail, and then did get mugshot. So I think that there is a motivation there, and some of these elected officials may be seeing the writing on the wall. So we'll see what happens.
Well, guys, wishful thinking, because this has all been a major plan. We can see that Barack Obama has had his hands involved with a lot of illegal things in Chicago. His whole mission was to steal as much as money as he could. And now they erected this so-called library, which is nothing no more than a satanic center for Satan in the city of Chicago. They closed down citizens' homes. They invaded Jackson Park. I mean, it took over 10 years for them to build this monstrosity, and it has never been about the taxpayer of Chicago, especially the Black community, because, Black folks in Chicago is the majority, and they sit back and allow people like Brandon Johnson to get in office from the way that the Democrats presented itself. Like, we got to hate Trump no matter what. The Republicans are no good. We're going to take care of your kids in school. All of this whole system was promoted by the Democratic Party and these political leaders who had no interest in Chicago but to destroy it and bring it to its knees, just like it is right now. Because in the Black communities like Inglewood, Auburn, Gresham, West Side, East Side, all of these neighborhoods are dying. Especially these are Black communities that are dying. And now, as we continue to just sit back and try to deal with the fallout, these politicians are quitting because they know, just like you said, Dre, J.D. Vance has ramped up this fraud investigative team in every state. And so now that they're looking at these records, because, you know, Chicago, California, and the other 20-some states, Minnesota, refused to hand over their voters' rolls. They didn't want to hand over their Medicaid, EBT rolls because of all the illegals they had put on it that have been sucking the life out of the Americans' taxpayers. So, but I'm going to play this clip, and then we're going to talk about it, guys.
Trying to balance its budget through furloughs, layoffs, and spending freezes. We've been telling you all about this the last couple of weeks, but some say they're missing the opportunity to close underutilized schools.
Yeah, this is always a hot button issue. That includes Frederick Douglass High School, now the emptiest big school, not just here in the city of Chicago. We're talking about in the entire nation. It was built to serve 1,000 kids. To date, only 27 students are enrolled. 27. Joining us now is Austin Berg, Executive Director of the Chicago Policy Center. I know you did a lot of work on this. We appreciate it. Thank you for being here. You say in your article that Douglass illustrates the consequences of poor facilities planning, fewer opportunities for students, and higher costs for taxpayers. We were just talking about this. Why hasn't this school been closed? 28 full-time staff members, 27 students. The math isn't mathing here.
The math is not mathing. More full-time employees than students, almost double the number of classrooms as students at Frederick Douglass Academy. These statistics to the common person in Chicago are just shocking. And the reason is that Chicago Public Schools has no framework right now that is public for what happens, what are the minimum standards for enrollment and performance at a school. And by the way, what are the high bar standards that would trigger replication of a school? We lack a framework for both. In absence of that framework, all we have in Chicago is a moratorium on school consolidation. So we don't have a real plan. We simply have a big sign that says no, and that is not serving kids well.
Okay, let's put that graphic back up.
Please.
I know cost per student, and I assume this is through all of Chicago public schools, is 93 or was it 98? 93 or 98,000
At Douglass High School, we are spending $93,000.
That is more than the average person in the city of Chicago makes, the head of household. I mean, that is incredible. How is that even possible?
It happens when you have a massive building. Like, imagine what it would cost per person in your household if you had a household built for 100 times as many people as are in your family, right? Those costs add up really quickly. And I should mention, too, those statistics are just sort of so shocking because we often hear about how Chicago Public Schools is cash strapped. And then you look at a school like this where it's so clear these resources are being used poorly. But it's not just a poor outcome for the district or for taxpayers. It's really driving poor outcomes for students there. So 100% of seniors at Frederick Douglass are chronically absent, meaning they miss more than 10 days of school per year. No 11th grader could read or do math at grade level. And that's what we would expect from a school that can't really offer the extracurriculars that are so enriching, class, a breadth of different classes, just because there are so few students there.
Oh, I got so many questions, Austin. I really do. This one, I think, would fire up most people, get you fired up, because then you hear from the Chicago Public Schools, specifically CTU, calling for more money from the state. And so you see a situation like this, and you're like, what are you spending the money on? Have you gotten a response from CPS, CTU, on why this facility has remained open? And how long has this been going on?
This has been going on for years. I mean, more than a decade. We've seen considerable decline in the number of students enrolled at this school as families have voted with their feet. But you make such a critical point there. The school district is in a position where it is increasingly needing to go to the state for additional resources. Imagine you are a state lawmaker and you're sitting in your office and a lobbyist comes to you saying, hey, we need more money for Chicago Public Schools. How can you feel good about that decision when you have a school that's spending $93,000 per student per year and is only 3% utilized, the emptiest big city school in the country? So it hurts the district's ability to advocate for itself at the state level. I will say that Mayor Brandon Johnson and the Chicago Teachers Union, when faced with questions about under-enrolled schools like this, they point to a model that they use called the Sustainable Community Schools model, which is more about providing additional staff and additional wraparound services at schools. The problem with that model is that in the 8 high schools that have used sustainable community schools, that model since 2018, we see proficiency is down, enrollment is down, absenteeism is up, and spending is up. So it's not a model that really can turn around these schools. What we really need is a framework. What we're calling for a blue ribbon commission from the newly elected school board in November that can actually build a framework for how do we properly use our facilities to better serve students.
I'm just going to ask the question that everybody at home is asking. And look, Tia and I get it. We were here during the Rahm Emanuel administration. We know the blowback he got from closing 50 CPS schools. But why can we not just get to the point where we're like, this is not making ends meet. We got to close schools like this?
I think most people are at that point. And what I would really expect and ask viewers to think about as they take votes in November for the first fully elected school board in Chicago history is, who are those candidates that are ready on day one at this Chicago school board fully elected to take on some of these really big issues? If they're not ready with that plan on day one, they're going to be floundering and dealing with crises every day. There's a lot of challenges at Chicago Public Schools. That is why we're calling for this excellence agenda at CPS, and that includes a Blue Ribbon Commission for planning facilities better.
Austin, really quickly, because they've given us the wrap here, but I have to ask this question. If they were to close this school, Frederick Douglass, where is the nearest school, the closest school?
There are several schools in Austin where these students could go, and indeed, many students at the school have already chosen other schools. So this is a small number of students. They should be served well, but this current school model at Frederick Douglass is clearly just not working for anyone.
All right, guys, 27 students in a school. Go ahead, Kirsten, you up first.
Okay, well, first of all, I don't know what in the hell they're spending $93,000 per student on, but that is ridiculous, okay? These kids, like they mentioned, I mean, these kids are getting a pass that they don't have to know how to read, write, proper English. I mean, we went all these years teaching proper English. Now they is a singular person. They don't know how to do math. Parents can barely even help their kids with their math homework because an easy math problem that went from solving it is now some extravagant freaking thing just to figure it out.
Yeah. That new math.
I don't understand what they're spending all of this money on. I just think that we need a revamp in every single aspect, and people need to start homeschooling their children because we are in a dangerous generation of children and what they're being taught, how they're being raised. And I don't know, but I don't want these kids wiping my ass when I get older. I can tell you that.
Mr. Binky.
Well, when he mentioned sustainable, that's Agenda 21 right there. That's your Common Core. As Kirsten was talking about, people need to homeschool. Is that the possibility why the student enrollment is so low? Maybe they're homeschooling. I don't know. He said that the cost of $93,000 was because of the size of the building. How does a building that's been paid for, that hasn't got to pay tax but collects tax, how does that $93,000 have anything to do with the size of a building? I mean, unless I heard him wrong. So I don't know what that dude was talking about, but he sure ain't got no answers. He's trying to create a whole different scenario, sustainable education, sustainable living, sustainable smart cities. I don't know what sustainable means to him.
Okay, Dre, you up?
Yeah, well, this is a problem when you have socialists and communists doing city planning. This is a perfect example of why you shouldn't vote socialists and communists into office. What did we see? Well, we really saw a fake school because in every one of those frames, you saw full classrooms. How the heck was it classrooms full? So those weren't the correct pictures for one. Right. And then number two, you have this brand new facility. Why aren't they busing students from other facilities that are crumbling down to fill those those student roles and then bring in some of the teachers that they fired to teach those students. Because some of these buildings, they've closed them down because they're condemned. They haven't invested into some of these schools. And they have a school that they've invested in, but they only have a little bit of students. A lot of the students are leaving. The parents are pulling them out of there because they're performing poorly. So this is a complete mess. I don't know why they can't put two people together with a brain to decide on how to fix this problem. This seems like an easy fix for me. I could think of multiple solutions on how they could start making money with this school and serving the students better.
Well, you guys, Rahm Emanuel, the mayor, before Lori Lightfoot, they said he closed 50 schools. It was more like 150 something schools that Rahm Emanuel closed. All the money, and he set the tone for the future mayors to fall into this trap of what he did when he shut down all of those schools. And so now here we are, $93,000 per student. And they can't read, they can't write. This is taxpayers' money. And the fact of the matter is, Brandon Johnson does not have a clue at all on how to fix this city. He never had a clue on how to fix the city. This was all part of Barack Obama's plan to destroy the city of Chicago and other major cities that's ran by the Democrats. I got another clip I'm going to play, guys, and then we're going to discuss it. This is regarding the schools.
$10 billion vote. CPS's nearly $10 billion budget proposal still has not been voted on at today's Board of Education meeting. The CPS CEO is pushing for passage while the CTU is opposing the plan. WGN's Jewel Hillary is live in the loop with details on this one. Jewel.
Hey, good afternoon, Lourdes. As you mentioned, still no vote yet. The Chicago Board of Ed met for several hours this morning and then took a recess around 1:30, and to our understanding, they are still on break right now. In spite of major pushback from the Chicago Teachers Union, CPS's CEO says that delaying today's vote would be catastrophic for the district. She says without it, the district will not be able to make payroll for September, and it could delay the start of this school year. Chicago Teachers Union members, including laid-off educators, rallied outside of CPS headquarters before Thursday's Chicago Board of Ed meeting.
With the first day of school quickly approaching, the uncertainty still remains. As a paraprofessional, I have built meaningful relationships with students who are counting on me to be there when they walk through those doors.
But many familiar faces won't greet students when school starts in August. In an effort to bridge the district's $732 million deficit, CPS has already laid off 162 employees. The proposed budget includes at least 1,500 additional layoffs. CTU President Stacey Davis Gates adamantly speaking out against the plan.
All of that is less than what kids deserve, and all of that is going to impact their education wrongly.
Compared to last year, CPS Superintendent Macquillan King says the district is in much worse shape financially. She says the district risks not meeting payroll if a budget is not passed today.
If we pass a budget today, our finance team expects that they will have funds. It will have the funds we need to make payroll by September 2nd, just 2 days before the deadline. Delaying the budget would be a catastrophic for our district.
Many budget opponents demand a special session in Springfield where the district's financial woes could be ironed out, pressing for state lawmakers to fully fund the district.
The only way this works is if Springfield figures out how to meet the state law and fund Chicago Public Schools by 20% more.
On Wednesday, Illinois Speaker of the House Chris Welch announced his support for supplemental funding for CPS. Fighting for more resources is also on State Senator Robert Martwick's agenda.
That burden falls on everyone. It falls on Springfield for not having the courage to fix our revenue system and raise the revenues to properly fund education. But it falls on everyone for not joining that fight.
It's time to keep our promises. It's time for the Illinois General Assembly, for Governor J.B. Pritzker, to keep the promise that they made to all of our students.
5 furlough days were in CPS's original budget proposal, but after significant backlash, the board decided to take furlough off the table. The Board of Ed has until the end of August to pass a budget. Reporting live in the Loop, I'm Jewel Hillary, WGN News.
All right, Dre, your thoughts.
Well, there's a whole bunch of problems with this, but it is just another problem that's related to budgeting. The city of Chicago doesn't budget. CTU definitely can't budget, and they'll be looking to Brandon Johnson about what are we going to do now. But I wanted to share something with the viewers, because the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois pays on average $24,000 per student. That is almost 4 times what Frederick Douglass is paying per student. So they should have shut that school down yesterday or repurposed it, because that is just a travesty that they're spending almost 4 times more than the rest of the state at this particular school.
Mr. Binky?
Well, I like listening to her. It's about the kids, but they want a 20% increase in the budget, but they don't have a plan to fix the problem they want to pass the budget for. It's not about the kids. It's about them. It's about,
that's right.
They dropped 5 furlough days. What's that got to do with the kids? Their paychecks. What's that got to do with the kids? The failure of educating them kids. That's not the kids' problem. That's the school, and that's the teachers' union problem. And we've got an inept government arguing about how to fund stupidity. God, where do I get this wrong?
Kirsten?
Well, sitting here looking at the fact that Chicago has one of the highest tax rates, okay, where is the money going?
That's right.
You're sitting here saying that you don't have money to pay payroll, okay, but yet these schools get all this tax dollars. You have one of the highest tax in Chicago, and I'm just wondering, where's the money going?
The money went into illegal aliens, and it stopped when the government stopped sending the money to house and support those legal aliens. So now they didn't have the money to cover up the mess that they made by overspending the money that the government gave them and funding their own budget.
I'm not going to say this is I'm 100% correct on it, but I think at one point 3 or 4 years ago, I looked up the average pay for a Chicago teacher, and it was like around $60,000 or $70,000.
That's high.
Yes. And look at the education that comes out of it.
I think it's probably higher now.
Well, guys, you know what? It is higher in the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois, because teachers are making 6-figure salaries now. And the children can't read, they can't write. It's all about the teachers now. Remember, guys, it was the teachers who supported Brandon Johnson to get in office. They pushed for him to be in office so that this could occur. But now Brandon Johnson screwed the teachers too, because he took the money that could have been used for the schools and gave it to illegals. And I think that is the biggest problem that we're seeing across the country in these Democratic states. And I'm telling you, the Democrats have put this plan in motion to destroy this country, to make our children illiterate, and use them as a vehicle to study, get the money. The organizations like the Greek organizations, the fraternities and sororities, they have been instilled themselves into the systems and the states, the school systems, and they're the ones who are pushing for these high salaries, but yet our children aren't learning anything. They're completely dumb to what they need to become good citizens, and this is what the Democratic state and all other blue states have allowed to happen, especially right here in the city of Chicago. Let's see what Brandon Johnson has to say about this, guys.
Director Annette Guzman's decision to step away from her role with the Office of Budget and Management to focus on caring for her family during an incredible difficult time. First and foremost, we are keeping Annette, her mother, and her entire family in our thoughts and our prayers. Family comes first. And as an administration, we stand with Annette and support her during this difficult moment. I also want to take a moment to express my deep gratitude to Annette for her years of public service and for the role that she played in helping us carry out my vision that the people of Chicago elected me to deliver. Annette has been a committed partner in our administration's work, and she has certainly helped us navigate some of the most significant fiscal challenges that our city has faced. And she has helped strengthen the foundation that we are building for the future of our beloved city. We are grateful for her leadership, her dedication, and her service to the city. But I also want Chicagoans to hear this absolutely clearly, that my values have not changed, and our commitment has not changed. As the mayor of this great city, my vision that guides this administration remains the same. The people of Chicago elected me to build a safer, more affordable city, one where working people have opportunity, where families can thrive, and where every single neighborhood has a chance to succeed. And that is the work that we have been doing, and that is the work that we will continue to do. I'm incredibly proud of what we have accomplished together.
All right, Dre, your thoughts on what he said. This doesn't make any sense. The city is broke. The schools are not going to open. Crime is high. I mean, how can he sit here in front of these cameras and tell the people of Chicago that Chicago is probably one of the most safest, affordable cities in America? Your thoughts on what he's saying?
Well, his vision is just all messed up. Like he said that he thanked Annette for supporting his vision. You know, violence is up. Problems in the city's budget is just a chronic problem. And now you're saying that you were tasked with building a safe and affordable city. None of those things are true. And you said that you wanted to build a city where everyone has a chance to succeed. Well, it's not just everyone in Chicago, it's everyone in the world that can come into your city and possibly succeed. You know, we're going to pass out all these benefits to you, and you're going to make it because the government's going to pay for it. Well, the government's running out of money now, and now he's got to stick to his vision. He can't back down. He can't say, I'm sorry, Chicago, I was wrong. No, he's going to stand on business until he's kicked out of office. Until his term is up.
As soon as he opened his mouth up, it was nothing but a lie. You know, these guys, these people have people to write speeches for them. The rah-rah, boom-de-ay, pep rally, we're the greatest, I'm doing the best, you people, oh, God. Kirsten, I'm 100% with you. People have got to wake up and vet these idiots. It's stupid. I don't know how. I can't say no more.
Kirsten.
So my problem is we the people have to start making a stand. Okay, our voices should not only matter before the election, right? Our voices need to still matter. And you know, everyone can get online and bitch and complain all they want, right? But the problem is that none of the people are following through. If a leader promises you all of these things and is not doing what they said, right? We should have impeachments. We should have recalls on elections. We should have violations of ethics laws. But I don't see anything happening, right? So you allow these people for their 4-year term or whatever the term may be to continuously destroy the city or the state, and nothing happens. So until we, the people, start using your powers and your voice and making things happen and filing complaints and not just sitting behind a computer bitching, nothing's going to change.
Virginia's got a motto. I think it's "Si Semper Tyrannis," which means that tyrants will fail, they will fall. You know, so.
Well, you know, this whole thing with Brandon Johnson has really, it is no surprise for me. You know, I saw the type of person he was when he ran for the commission years before he even ran for the mayorship. He was a failed teacher. He got fired from being a teacher because he wasn't teaching the students anything, yet he was supporting a curriculum that wouldn't teach them anything, so they ended up firing him from the job. So I don't quite understand how CTU, who knew that Brandon Johnson was inept, voted for him to become the mayor, because what their mindset was this: they was trying to get raises. They wanted the money for the teachers. And once that he got caught, then all that money went out of the window, because when he first took office, there was $1 billion, $1.7 billion missing that nobody ever found. And so that was the COVID money that was left over that he took. And he hid that money and was hoping that the president was going to continue to fund it, but they didn't. And so that's why he's being exposed. And that's why so much money is having to come up now, because the Democrats who stole this money with J.B. Pritzker, they can't bring the money back up because they've already stole it. So now they're going to have to figure out ways how to raise taxes on the taxpayers. They got to figure out ways how to, raise corporate tax. All of these things are failing because he took the money, put it into illegals, and using the illegal vehicle, he stole, him and the politicians, Obama, all of them, Pritzker, all of them stole the taxpayer monies, and the money is hid and probably went to that big old satanic temple that Barack built, and he didn't pay the black contractor. So the people of Chicago and the state of Illinois are going to suffer. I want to play a little bit more of Brandon Johnson talking about the situation right quick.
Is growing. Our economy is growing in ways that are outpacing other cities. More people visited our city last year than any other time in the history of Chicago, 57 million people. And what we've seen thus far, as you indicated, our hotels, our occupancy rate is at 89%. So essentially our rooms are essentially filled. And it has a lot to do with just all of the activity that's happening in Chicago. What's happening at the Magnificent Mile, right, where the vacancy rate has fallen below what it was at the highest point after the pandemic.
Now, as I said, Save a Lot, they're out, they're running, they're getting out of there, y'all. They've said, hey, we can't make it economically viable to stay in these areas any longer. So sorry, y'all, but we got to go. Now, you just saw your boy talking about his economic gains, but of course he didn't mention this.
Several Save-A-Lot stores on the city's south and west sides are on track to shut down by the end of the week. The looming closures would make it even harder for residents in underserved neighborhoods to access fresh groceries.
Discounts and disappointment for shoppers at the Save-A-Lot store at 63rd and Halsted.
We ain't going nowhere to go. We need affordable things to be able to feed our kids.
All 7 Save-A-Lot stores operated by a company called Yellow Banana are set to shut down Saturday unless new investors step in. Save-A-Lot blaming financial challenges for ending its arrangement with the operator.
So within a 2-mile stretch, we're losing 2 grocery stores within the Inglewood community.
This one used to be a Whole Foods. It closed in 2022, and we were there as Yellow Banana was planning to open the new store. Inglewood pushed back.
We wanted something substantial, something that we knew would be viable for the community.
The city worked out a deal to give Yellow Banana $13.5 million to renovate rundown Save-A-Lot stores. Its CEO promised change.
These will be very, very different stores than what you're used to.
The Chicago Sun-Times reports he died earlier this year, and 3 years after those promises, the stores are set to close. In a statement, Save-A-Lot says they faced financial headwinds, including dramatic cuts to SNAP benefits, which have severely impacted these stores. Compared to last year, the stores have experienced a 26% decline in SNAP EBT tender types.
So what about the violence?
Okay, guys, your thoughts on that? Because let me tell you, the reason this is the neighborhood that I grew up in, Inglewood. And all, it used to thrive. When my grandmother was an older woman, we had everything. We had stores, everybody had jobs. The city was working and the black community was self-sufficient. But now here we are, and this time, look at what's happening. Jay, what's up, Dre? You want to comment on that?
I think Kristen is ready. I'm gonna let her
go ahead, Kristen. Go ahead. I know. I see the smile on your face. Go ahead.
I mean, the comical part for me, I guess, is the number one reason why they say that they can't stay open is because the SNAP benefits. I mean, it's just incredible that you have an entire city that is on welfare, that none of you can go out and get jobs, that you're all relying on welfare, and a grocery store, one of the cheapest grocery stores in this country, Save-A-Lot, cannot stay open because they relied on EBT. That's just insanity. That tells you exactly where the problem is.
Mr.
Too many
Binky?
Americans are sitting on their ass thinking they're entitled to our hard-earned money rather than going out and getting a job and buying ridiculous things with SNAP benefits. And I just can't understand why people are not seeing the problem with this.
Mr. Binky?
Yeah, exactly. You know, dumb mammy in New York is wanting to open all these stores up. They're free grocery stores and stuff. There's got to be a way to, they're not free, but they're going to be dependent on EBT and SNAP, and probably he's got some other programs to give stuff out for free, right? And we had 3 grocery stores here in Little Chicago down here, Peoria. They shut down, and it was because of theft. You know, there was more going out the back door than the front door to be getting paid for. So I mean, and I'm not putting a color to this or a race to this or anything, but if a business is failing because of theft or mismanagement, or as Kirsten acknowledged, it's based on EBT or SNAP programs, that's socialism. So that's a slap in the face for somebody to wake up. Just you're hearing it for yourself, so change it.
Dre?
Yeah, so you know, in our last clip of Brandon Johnson, he was saying he was committed to building a safe and affordable Chicago. President Trump said, "Hey, I will solve your crime problem overnight. Let me send the National Guard over there." He didn't want to do that. And now all these stores, and you guys saw the map, all these stores are getting ready to leave because they are dealing with theft, as Mr. Binky was saying. And this theft is causing them to lose revenue. But do you think that a lot of people would have been able to steal as much if the National Guard was there? They would think twice about it. So he's not committed to safe neighborhoods. And then number 2, with the EBT, we have all these people that are out of the workforce. And part of the reason why some of them have been out of the workforce for decades is because they are low-wage workers that cannot get a job now because they brought in all these illegal aliens. We need to get these people back to work and decrease those EBT the EBT dependence so that we can keep these stores open for people. These communities can thrive if we get some of them back to work, and some of them can work. Go ahead.
Mr. Binky?
I want to hit on something Andre was just talking about, bringing in the National Guard. That's, to me, bringing in the National Guard, that's forcing compliance. That's forcing, you know, you're wanting to eliminate and lower crime. You want to escalate responsibility and jobs. And I don't see bringing in the National Guard. I think society itself needs to be revamped. I think, as we've always talked, there needs to be 2 parents in the home.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with that, Mr. Binky. My problem is that I've seen what the National Guard has done in DC. I've seen that they've been able to clean up a lot of these places where they had the homeless. I've seen that the train station, the metro stations are a lot safer with the Guard's presence. And we might need to force some change. We might need to start having these people out there, because it's actually helping out the community too, because a lot of these kids they're curious. They're seeing these guys with the AK-47. They see them every day. They start to strike up conversations with them, and that one conversation could change the trajectory of some of these students that might not have someone that has some authority in their life.
Well, I don't disagree totally on what you're saying. I'm just saying it's how it's being.
Exactly.
You know, you're bringing in a policing action. You're forcing people to not do stuff that we need to train and educate on their own. You know, and if the trouble can't go because of the military or whatever being there, they'll move someplace else.
Right. And I know how you feel about big government, and we don't want the government to be too involved with our daily lives. But I do think there are circumstances where the government needs to get involved for a temporary period of time to start to get the turnaround, because like they need to reset everything and then get the community leaders involved to figure out how we're really going to fix this problem.
Right.
Well, guys, you know what? When Brandon Johnson got elected, his whole idea was to defund the police department, and he did just that. And so crime went crazy. He opened the borders and allowed all the illegals to get here. They have committing crimes, and the numbers are a lot higher than what they're saying. And so the fact of the matter is this: the illegals who are on the EBT rolls is what they were experiencing a couple of years ago, and the stores were able to stay open because you had all the illegals running in and out of the stores, and black people wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. And so now that this situation has happened, we do need the National Guard. Mr. Binky, I have to disagree with you totally, because law enforcement has not been able to handle the problem. They've been defunded, and everything is going crazy. So the National Guard would have killed the crime in Chicago, but that's not what they wanted, because the more crime, the more ways they were able to bring more illegals in. The citizens now are being taxed to death, almost out of their pockets. And so we needed the National Guard in Chicago, like they did in Memphis, like they did in DC, to make the changes so that these communities could thrive again and crime would almost disappear had they used them and in Chicago, and it would have had a different look. Christian, I know you want to talk a little about something before we get out of here. I see the smile on your face. We're going to switch the gears for a minute and let her talk about you go ahead. Tell them what you want to talk about.
So, I mean, I just have some food for thought for your followers. Now, as a 3-time voting for Trump, okay, I support Trump. I went to prison for Trump. But I do think that we're hitting a wall in this country as far as American people being allowed to have their voice and not be attacked even by the conservative movement, right? We are allowed, Trump is not God, okay? We are allowed to still support him, but still ask questions, to still be concerned about certain things. And I find that when I speak about these issues, I'm being attacked by the MAGA community. And as Americans, again, there's so many, hypocrites as far as the Democrats, they deported millions of illegals. Now it's a problem because of Trump, right? But in criticizing Trump, I do think that when we mobilized on a national level, okay, car parades, door knocking, you name it, to get this man elected, we, the people, still deserve the answers after he's in office. For me, a couple of the issues are, why is Ghislaine Maxwell, who is a sex offender, who was proven guilty to traffic children, yet nobody she trafficked the children to have been arrested? Her being in a prison camp violates the BOP's policy. Sex offenders do not go to camps. We still have no answers. Todd Blanche was asked about it last week. Still no answers, right? No prosecutions for the FBI agents or the corruption on January 6th. You have a $5 million settlement for a wrongful death of Ashley Babbitt that day at the Capitol. Michael Byrd got promoted, has not been prosecuted. So we do have questions. We have concerns that are completely valid, that even the conservative movement needs to be brave enough to stand up and ask. That doesn't mean that you're against Trump, but we need to be heard once these people are still in office. We want to know why there are still so many gatekeepers behind Trump. We want to know why the pardon office is playing politics with people's freedom and earned justice. So I would just encourage people, no matter which side of the aisle, there needs to be questions asked, and we need answers.
Mr. Binky, your thoughts on that?
Well, I totally agree with Kirsten. We got to keep a dialogue open, whether we all agree about everything or disagree. It's still, you don't look at an elected official, a public servant, as doing everything right and not calling it out when they do it wrong. It's a conversation we all got to have. It's part of education. It's part of keeping people understanding of what's going on out there. As Kirsten talked about, people committed crimes, actually murdered somebody, a couple of people, and nobody was ever held accountable. You know, there was even, I don't believe there was even an investigation, a hearing, or nothing, but a promotion. You know, so there's a line here on who's essential and who's non-essential, who's important and who ain't. All men are created equal. That means when all men do something wrong, they should be held accountable. That's the whole part of our system in this country. And just because you're part of a system that thinks they're above you should not be held accountable. I think that's an insult to our liberty and our founding.
Mr. Dre, you up?
Yeah, so I'm gonna put out the disclaimer. I'm not speaking in any capacity for Numbers USA or Turning Point USA right now. I'm speaking from myself. I do think that elected officials need to be held accountable. I do think that the electorate should be able to get their questions answered. And if they're not, then those are questions that need to be pushed back to elected officials in order to determine why, after we put all this effort to get you elected, are you not doing what you said you would do?
Well, guys, you know, that is something that the American people and patriots across this country need to stand in support of. We need to make sure that those people who have been offended, like the J6s, because I saw the footage, Kirsten. I saw it myself, that was really no riot out there. This whole thing was put together by the Democrats to try to slow Trump down and keep him from running for office. So this whole J6 thing was a travesty because you saw patriots out there voicing their opinions about the government that Joe Biden and all the rest of them had put together against us. And so I agree with you that they need to be held accountable. You know, people's heads need to be rolled. People need to be put in prison. And the J6ers needed to be compensated because they served time in prisons that they didn't have to by the lie that the Democrats put together to make it seem like there was a insurrection against the government. That never happened. I saw a lot of footage where the police officers were escorting people who were protesting through the Capitol. And so this whole thing with the J6ers was a big lie. We need an investigation into that thoroughly, and the people who have done this need to be put in prison, and the J6ers need to be compensated for being put in prison for exercising their American rights. Mr. Binky, your last words. We got to get out of here.
Well, I just hope, as what Kirsten started out with, I just hope people start educating themselves. The educational system, the media, politicians, they are not the people to listen to. They're there for their own interest. And I want encourage everybody to be in this for your best interest. And that means you need to start educating yourself, pull the books out, read for yourself, understand what the truth of the founding of this country is, because we can't be divided. We can't have an essential and a non-essential. We can't have public servants being over us. We are the leaders of this country, and we got to start acting like it.
Kirsten, your last words.
Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Not one American is living that. We want to know when we're going to be able to afford gas and food. Okay. Things need to change. There needs to be more transparency, and people need to not be afraid to stand up and speak out about things and demand the answers, because we, the people, do hold the power to this country. Now, whether January 6th scared every American to sit back and not do anything, they need to overcome that before we are overran.
Dre, your last words.
Yeah, so I agree with Mr. Binky. People need to educate themselves. They need to read. And Back of the Hiring Line has a second edition out. This has the 200-year history of immigration in this country. If you want to understand how immigration works, you need to go to numbersusa.org and find out for yourself.
Guys, I want to thank y'all for coming on the show. We might do something on Friday. I'll let everybody know what's going on. So I want to thank you for coming on the show, and we're gonna do something. But in the meantime, in between time, let us think about how we can make this country great again. I'll talk to you guys later. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to the show. A lot of things were said here that we need to pay close attention to. Here in the city of Chicago, we got a mayor that has no clue on what needs to be done to make the city viable. The lies he's told, the money that has been stolen, has not only hurt the taxpayers of Chicago, but have hurt the entire state. These are my last words. To the American people and patriots across this country, we can see what has happened to our country, not by what somebody said, but by the actions they've taken to destroy it. It is time for us to really put our heads together. And coming up for these midterms, there should be no Democratic politician elected in this country, because we can see what the Democrats have become. They have become communists and socialists. Their vision is not to take care of the American citizens. Chicago is a prime example. Look at what Brandon Johnson did. Brandon Johnson gave all the money to the illegals. He lied about making sure that the Black community in the state, the West Side, South Side, these communities were supposed to thrive. Downtown, the Magnificent Miles is being marred by teen takeovers and riots and killings. And so the Democratic Party has shown their hand to the American citizens and patriots across this country. It's time for us to stand up. We need to support President Trump so that we can get back to a place where the American citizens are first. And in saying that, folks, I want to thank you. Y'all share it around. Go to my page on YouTube, David L. Lowry Jr., and subscribe. It don't cost nothing. I'm on Rumble, David Lowe 1057. And let us come together as Americans so we can make this country great again. God bless you. God bless America. And we'll see you guys on Friday.